It was nonsense.
It wasn't.
It was goddamn nonsense.
It wasn't any more nonsense than anything else we talked about.
That might be true. That might be true. Can't say for sure.
Anyway.
Welcome back to another episode of the Ayoub podcast. What are we talking about today?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, when we left off last time, I said that I wanted to talk about violence and its place in society, if it has one, what its place is.
Uh-huh.
But a little story first. Okay. So, I live in Maryland, and we have ballots, mail-in ballots that we can get.
Mm-hmm. We also have this in Colorado as a standard.
Online ballots, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I only moved to Maryland back in January, so I don't know how recent or how long-standing that's been the case. But since I've been here, that's how it's been. Since like COVID or whatever, I'm sure it's been like that. So printed it out because that's how you do it. You can't like fill it out online or whatever.
Oh, interesting. It doesn't come in the mail. You have to print it out. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Well, you can get one that comes in the mail.
Okay.
But you can select a preference to either just like get a link to it or to get one that comes in the mail. Melissa got one that was like linked. She got one in the mail, and I got one that was linked to me, whatever. But I like hers because it looks more official. So next time I'm going to get that one. But anyway, doesn't really matter.
It's folded appropriately. It's
yeah, and it's got that nice paper stock.
Size.
It's not that crappy like printer paper that we have, and it's that like nice thick cardstock material paper, whatever. Anyway, so in addition to all of the like governor and lieutenant governor and all that shit that you can vote for, at the back of it, right, they've got like questions.
The ballot measures.
Yeah. So like state constitutional amendments, that kind of shit.
Right.
And one of them was a legalization of cannabis.
Hey,
measure.
Welcome to the modern world. Welcome to the 21st century.
Well, don't welcome me just yet.
Oh, dear.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I was for that, absolutely. But I have no idea how many fucking olds and assholes in my state are going to vote against it. So
you never know, man. One of my favorite moments was on the very first day of legalized cannabis in Colorado. I stood online because it was neat to get into a dispensary, and the line was literally every human. It was the most diverse line I had ever been in. It was olds, it was youngs, it was whites, it was blacks, it was gays, it was straights, it was conservatives, it was liberals. It was amazing. So,
can you say the same thing for the set of people, whoever they were, however small they were, that voted against legalization? Would you also make the claim that group of people is as diverse as the group of people that wanted it?
I have no evidence to back up this statement. But no, they were all old, white, angry men. Guaranteed.
I don't know why, but I feel like it'd be more old, angry women than old, angry men.
No, and because look, I mean, I don't know. We're dicks, especially when we get older.
I guess so.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway.
But all that to say that today I voted, which is an excellent segue into the conversation about violence in society, because when this first came up, a couple of podcasts ago, a couple episodes ago, it was about, I made a claim, which frankly, I still kind of stand behind. So I guess there's a certain hypocrisy to my voting, which is the claim that we are so mired in a bureaucratic soup of just nonsense and garbage that for the process to even work, and that doesn't mean you get what you want, but for it to actually function as it's supposed to, there's this entire like tangled net of shit that we have to untangle, burn, throw away, whatever the fuck.
Yeah, we have to burn it down before we can fix it, is basically what you were getting at.
But see, here's the thing. Not the system. There are underpinnings to the system, right? There are fundamentals that are good. They make sense. Okay. They are sound.
Okay.
And if you think of it like something with layers, right? The foundations are strong. And then over the years, right, people have tacked on a whole bunch of extra shit. And some of that shit was good. It was smart because it was like, oh, you know what? we should probably spell out this thing that we didn't think about beforehand. Okay, great. We'll add that on.
Okay.
But like anything that's additive, right, in our society, not all of it is fucking gold.
Sometimes you're going to get ugly wallpaper. Sometimes.
Some of it's dog shit. I mean, really, some of it's dog shit. And it's like, and so that I don't want to like fucking tear the whole thing down to the.
That's a good clarification.
I just like there are certain little cancerous tumors here and there throughout the system.
It sounds to me like you're
talking. I want to fucking.
It sounds to me like you're talking about incremental, reasonable change over time.
The subjective element of your statement is the incremental over time, right? Define incremental. How small an increment and over what length of time? That's, I think, where the gray area lies for all of these debates.
All right,
right?
I mean, fair enough, but I would respond to that with, what's your threshold of acceptance? How patient can you be? How willing are you to engage in the system that we have in an effort to make it better? If you're not willing to engage in it, and if you're impatient, then
I think it's the level of engagement that would be required. So,
maybe
because here's the thing, right? I voted. So that's technically engagement in the system. To hear that. Right?
I was actually
engagement in the system.
I was legitimately worried that you were a non-voting citizen.
No. I voted, and as a matter of fact, a couple of thoughts I had about the whole process was like, because what I like to do is granted, I don't, not nearly as much as I should. I should be researching like a week or so in advance, like spending time online, finding aggregation sites or looking at the actual candidate sites. But what I did,
your ballot, by the way, and this is a good message for anybody that might be listening in a state where you don't have the opportunity to vote at home, where you have to go in a booth, is that the beauty of the mail-in, or in this case, online-able ballot, is it's an open book test. You can sit, like I have in my county, and I'm sure it's similar in other places. I have some list of fucking judges I've never heard of that I have to vote for. Exactly. I don't know who they are. So I sit there and I go and I look at their things and I decide there. Yeah.
Yes. Then this was the thought I had. So one step further, wouldn't it be nice if because there's a lot of front matter to the ballot that doesn't get mailed in with the ballot proper, right? All you have to do is mail in or deposit in a box or send somewhere the ballot proper. But there's front matter that's instructions.
Yeah.
Right? Wouldn't it be nice if along with the instructions, there was a fucking summary of the positions that because literally all there is a list of names.
Right.
And some of them say Democrat and Republican, Libertarian, Green, whatever. Right. But some of them, like Board of Ed, for instance, right?
Sure,
those are nonpartisan elected positions. So they don't list anything. They're just the person's name. I don't even know if they're the incumbent or not because my ballot doesn't identify them as the incumbent or not.
So approximately...
give me some fucking information.
In Colorado, approximately 3 to 4 weeks prior to the ballots being mailed, we receive a booklet by county. So depending upon which county you're in, and that booklet,
we got that too.
Yeah, I don't know because every state's different, so it does vary quite a lot. Well, we receive a booklet that lists all of the party affiliations, the people running, their effectively their basic platform, because it's a nonpartisan thing, so it's not going to tell you who's good or bad. It's just going to give you
but
it
should say this person's position on
roughly speaking
finance.
It does. And it lists out all the ballot measures, because on a ballot, the ballot measures are usually, a small amount of text that are often worded very oddly and difficult to kind of parse and go, is this a yes or a no? I have to read it a couple of times. In this booklet, it lays out the plain language explanation of the ballots in a way that makes it much more easy to understand. So I would say...
To be fair, the ballot measures were very clearly described in the actual ballot itself. Excellent. So they did do a good job of both explaining what the current law was and what the change would do to the current law.
Perfect. I think that's a very good way to do it. I would argue Colorado's ballot measures are a little bit less clear, so you have to do a little bit more research. But I mean, look, in the political system that we have, the way that it operates is that candidates attempt to market to the voters. And they do so via television and publications and mailers and all the nonsense billboards, right?
By the way, message to all candidates. And for voters that disagree with me, fuck you, I don't care. No one gives a shit about your family, how many kids you have, where you went to, like, none of that shit matters.
Yeah.
Tell us your fucking positions on things. That's it.
But
that's
here's the
what
thing,
I want to
though.
know. I want to know what your positions are.
No, the people vote with their feelings. People vote with the cute dog. So what I was getting at, actually, because it's a good segue, is what I was getting at is they try to market to us, and they try to market to us in the ways that they think will impact as many people as possible in various ways. You see the commercials and you look at that, this ad is definitely for older people. This ad is definitely for women. This ad, et cetera, right? And then we're asked to make a choice on a ballot based upon that marketing. Or we can be informed as much as is reasonable about the candidates and their positions and why we would vote for them or not. And quite frankly, that's the few in the society who are sufficiently patient to take the time to be informed about the candidates and the issues and the reasons why they would vote for them. The vast majority of us are not those people. We are I like this face, or she said this thing that I liked, or, what a backdrop. Yeah, that's where I live. Cool. So it is that easy. And honestly, I think that's nonsense. And again, this is why I look at the mail-in voting process in Colorado is not something that got instituted in COVID. It's been here for a decade, where it is, if you are a registered voter, you receive a ballot in the mail. You can choose to use it, or you can choose to vote in person. You don't have to use the mail-in ballot, but why wouldn't you? Because you could sit there, and I do, at this very desk, I open the ballot, I read through it, I look at all the candidates, some of them I already know, and some of them I don't. And the things that I don't know or don't understand or I'm uncertain of, I will research. And it takes me about an hour to vote.
Yeah, same here.
And you think about the quick marketing schemes that candidates are trying to employ in order to get our votes. Yeah. That is a perfect match for ballot box day of voting. Right. You don't have a lot of time in that box. You got to make some snap decisions.
And all you can do is remember pre-internet. Well, I get the sense that our generation and younger, I don't know, I might be mistaken, because I'm also not I'm not big on social media. So there's an emotional appeal and an immediacy to social media that I don't engage in. I am very research driven. Like, I love buying shit. Fucking love Amazon. All right. I whip those Amazon slaves harder. I want same hour. Fuck same day. Give me same hour delivery, right? Okay. Have someone crawl on all fours to my house. No, but anyway, I digress. The point is, I love.
If you could, why not, right?
I love buying shit, but I love buying the best shit for the thing that I want to do. Uh-huh. So if I'm going to buy like an ice cream scoop, right? I'm going to research the best ice cream. Now maybe I don't buy it because it's like $1,000 or something stupid, right? Sure. But at least I know. Right. Okay, why is this the best one, right? Mm-hmm. And that applies, generally speaking, to like all the shit that I do on the internet. Kind of has that ethos to it. If I am going to buy something that somebody else is selling, whether it's an object like an ice cream scoop or it's a political candidate, right, who's selling their platform, mm-hmm. I want to know the dimensions. I want to know the weight. I want to know how long it's going to take to ship it to me. Like, I want to know all that juicy shit, and I want to get in the weeds of it so that I can make an informed decision.
Right.
Do you think that is a position that more young people have nowadays because of the internet, or that doesn't really factor into it?
I would suspect that the same amount of humans think that way now than did 20 years ago or 40 years ago or 100 years ago. I would suspect...
It's just easier.
Well, I think there certainly is more access, and it requires somebody being sufficiently interested in that access. I know people in this state who are registered to vote and receive a ballot and don't vote. And it's maddening because it just shows up and you don't have to do anything. And if you could be even lazier than me, you could go and put it in your mailbox and it gets sent away. You don't even have to go drop it at a ballot box if you don't want to. You can let the postal carrier take it away. It couldn't be any easier.
Yeah, but then you got to buy a stamp, and like, who the fuck does that?
I mean, I'm not even sure if it requires a stamp. I think it's prepaid. But in any case,
not ours.
Okay, but in any case, it's super easy, and the access to that information is greater now than it has ever been. It's more convenient now than it has ever been, and I would hope that a younger generation understands that And quite frankly, more states now do mail-in voting than have ever done before, in particular because of COVID.
It's also a lot easier too.
So much easier.
Like, to do the kind of research that you would need to do on a politician, like back in the day, like you used to have to like run in certain circles.
You had to read like the newspaper,
and not just one, several different newspapers because of biases and things like that. Like you'd have to really
you
do
still
some
have to
in-depth
do that.
research.
I would argue,
yeah, you do, but
with different media.
But with the internet, right, that can happen much more quickly. It is much more convenient you don't have to go to different places and subscribe to different things to get that information.
I would argue that you do.
If you go to the right aggregate sites,
I would argue that you should do that, and I would argue that here's the negative consequence of the ease of the internet. The ease and the speed of the internet is a place where somebody who doesn't know any better and is less capable at being discerning is going to be subject to nonsense, and that is a danger that exists, right? So this is where, to me, an education on how to do the research is really important.
But that education should exist whether the internet exists or not.
Well, no, not necessarily. I think you and I were
taught that way well before the internet came about.
Yeah, but
not from our parents, from school. I remember my school teaching me critical thinking. And how to do research.
I wondered that. And I don't recall my school acting like we didn't have a critical thinking class.
Neither did we. There was definitely like when we were learning about like book reports and stuff like that, right? Like we learned about primary sources, secondary sources, questioning the sources, like not relying on a single primary or secondary, right? Comparing and contrasting the ideas to see, does this hold up under scrutiny? Right. Does this make sense, right? Like all those things that you need to be a critical thinker.
I don't know if children are still taught that in school. I would assume that they are to some degree.
Please.
But I think that the internet is certainly a different animal. Our ability to get distracted by shiny things is stunning, and that's always been the case.
Baby.
But that internet is super shiny, and it's super easy to get distracted. So, if we were a society,
as soon as the first person poked me on Facebook, I unsubscribed and haven't been on any fucking social media.
I'm not even talking about social media. I'm just talking about Googling shit. Like it is. You can be mired in any amount of information, right, wrong, good or bad, and the individual then is responsible for being able to discern from that. And so the thing I would say is
what
that
about Wikipedia?
Well, hold on a second.
There's your one-stop shop.
No, it's not. For fuck's sakes. But hold on a second. The amount of people that exist today, or rather the percentage of our population that exists today that are sufficiently capable and discerning is no different than it was 40 years ago. And so and that percentage then extends, of course, to those who are not discerning and capable. And now they have the internet. So they can get lost in fucking flat earth conspiracies if they want to. Like that's turtles all the way down. That's what I'm getting at, right? Is like so there is a danger. The tool of the internet can be both used for good and for nonsense, effectively. To touch on the Wikipedia point real quick, I think Wikipedia is an extraordinary resource for humanity. But if you don't check references, it might as well be a pile of dog shit.
No, yeah, it's a starting point. It's an excellent starting point, but it's a starting point.
To anybody listening, for fuck's sakes, just look. If it says under the paragraph, citation needed, throw that paragraph away. Don't even go any further. If you see only one reference under that paragraph, what the fuck? If you see like 30 references, click a few of them and see where they go. If they go to the fucking Inquirer, throw it away. It's a dangerous place if you don't know how to use it. If you know how to use it, it's fucking brilliant. Anyway. So you voted. Excellent.
So I voted, right? So I participated in the process. But in order to participate in the process to the degree that I think would be necessary to employ the amount of change that I would like to see in my lifetime in the local community, right? Because you also said, like, how patient are you? Mm-hmm. That's a fair question. Some people are more patient than others and are willing to be satisfied with smaller gains over longer time. Me personally, I want more significant gains, but not at the expense of, like, me fucking around with my day, basically. So, admittedly,
you don't want to put that much effort into it, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So, do I have the time to? Absolutely. Oh, yeah. I could get involved. And I'll be honest with you. I actually think I will be, particularly when it comes to education, right? Because I have a personal stake in that. I have my kid, right? So because I have a kid, there is personal investment and stake in this thing that otherwise, generally speaking, doesn't really affect me.
Well,
Like I don't
no,
really give a shit about educate. Like if I didn't have any kids and I'm at this age,
and here's
like,
and a friend of mine
fuck do I
actually
care about?
said this to me, and it's quite insightful, and it's rather true. Even if you don't have kids, you should care about the education system, and you should care about those kids getting an education, because one day you're going to be an old fuck, and they're going to be making the decisions, and you want them to be at least reasonable enough so that way they don't burn you in a pit.
Fair enough. I think we got a long way to go in terms of sliding education standards before I have to worry about being burned in a pit by my lessers. So
you never know, buddy. You never know.
Fair enough. But the point is that in order for me to match my investment with a level of engagement, right? When it comes to education, I have that personal stake. So I'm probably going to be doing like PTA meetings and looking at like, like for instance, I did it with this one, the Board of Education, right? There's like, there were 3 seats on the board, and then there was like the president of the board. Mm-hmm. All of those were up for grabs in my area. So I was researching them and trying to figure out what their deal was, right? As best as I could. And it's difficult with Board of Elections because they're nonpartisan and they're at the lower, they're like at that county level or whatever.
Yeah, there's not a lot of information about them.
It's, yeah, you really have to
be involved in the community at that point to really get to know them. Yeah.
Mind you, there were some forums that were like, oh, they had done an interview with these candidates on like local access TV, and here's a recording of that. So at least there's something. It's not just a name and a face and an about me page that shows my house and my dog, which go fuck yourself. Like I actually was able to get some like useful information about their policy positions. And I'll probably end up getting more involved as my kid gets into school. But like, for instance, things that I think that are problematic, like redlining of districts or qualified immunity, or gun legislation, right? Things that I care about that I would want to see change in, that would require me to either run or really start to dedicate like nights and weekends regularly to being a pollster, being an activist, being a part of either a lobbying group or getting a lot more involved in like local neighborhood council meet, or like, you know what I mean? Like working my way up into the world.
Civic engagement.
Yeah, exactly. Civic engagement takes time and effort.
Yes.
Away from video games and smoking weed.
Right.
So
that's a tough choice you got to make,
right?
there, buddy.
Right.
It's a tough choice.
So
smoking weed and playing video games will not get you the change you desire in government.
It will not.
It will not.
No, it won't.
And the way in which you could achieve that change faster is through an autocratic state, or through totalitarianism, or through violent efforts.
But I'm not suggesting a totalitarian system. Here's the thing. Here's how we segue into the violence part of it. Okay. We have to lay the groundwork for a paradigm here, though.
Do we?
Yes, because the question is,
yes,
for the person who, and this is hyperbole. Obviously, we don't just mean fucking around with your life and playing video games, smoking weed. Like, there are plenty of legitimate things that other people have going on in their lives that would prevent them from the degrees of civic engagement needed to affect change that they want to affect.
I will add to that simply that voting is the absolute simplest and most impactful way that anyone in the country can be civically engaged without the need to give up video games or smoking weed.
Right. Now, when you say most impactful, there needs to be an asterisk next to that, which is most impactful for that level of engagement, which is a very small impact.
But it's an aggregate, right?
Which is a very small impact.
We keep saying scale matters. Less than 40% of eligible voters in this country actually vote.
Okay, but hang on a second. We're not the let's assume that 100% of voters voted, right? All that does is accurately ensure that the people get the person they wanted to get in terms of majority rules, right? The majority actually in that case does rule. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that the platform positions that that person that they voted in held are actually going to get enacted, because the bureaucracy and red tape and all the shit that they have to go through. So like all the stuff that you want so-and-so to do, that doesn't mean that that stuff gets done. Like, it's not, I don't vote because I care about the person. I vote because I want the shit that they claim that they want to get done.
Let me stop
to
you.
have that actually be done.
Let's take a moment to understand that the way that our system operates requires time and effort, and voting for a candidate, no matter how powerful or interesting or capable that candidate may be, does not ensure, like you said, that all of the things that you want will get passed.
Right. And by the way, forget all. Any.
It is no.
Any of the things that I want.
It is that process, that painfully slow, fucking irritating process of back and forth and stalling and bullshit bills and vetoing and all this this ping pong game we play. It is precisely that keeps our government sufficiently busy that they don't burn us in pits. A long, slow, large, diabetes-ridden government isn't going to be able to chase me down.
Okay, but see, here's the thing. If that long, slow process were truly ubiquitously maintained throughout history, we wouldn't have as many cancerous policies as we do now in the body politic.
Any cancerous policies, right? And we can name any number of them. Any cancerous policies, court rulings,
are the result of fast action.
Legislations, no, not necessarily fast at all, actually. It's not speed. It's you just didn't notice that it was happening until it happened one day. I was in the background maybe for 20 or 30 years, but you only started paying attention recently, or it only came public recently. And it is all of those nonsense bits that happen in government happen because we are not paying attention. And it takes effort. It takes work to pay attention. It takes a significant amount of time and brain power to consider what's happening in government. When was the last time you watched? No, when was the last time you watched the Senate operate on C-SPAN?
No. I won't even. You don't even have to continue. You've sold me. And in fact, to keep it consistent, the example that popped up into my head that supports your point, because I think I agree with you. I think you're right.
I'm right, baby.
Is the like the making illegal of like marijuana? That was not an overnight thing.
Oh no.
I know enough about the history of that because it's a thing that interests me, that I know that you're right. It took decades.
Yeah.
It took decades for that to happen. Now there were major keystone events that in the curve of leading up to the actual bing where like it's illegal now, there were steps along the way that like it leapt up.
Sure.
But the whole span of that, you're right, was like 30 years.
I mean, you could do that same exercise for just about anything. Yeah. Citizens United as a court ruling. Abortion. Citizens
right?
United.
That's something that they've been working on since the 1970s.
Well, they've been working on that since Jesus died. Fucking idiots. But Citizens United as a court ruling is probably one of the worst, if not the second worst, Supreme Court ruling of our lifetimes. And that's something that was in the works for a very long time before it ever happened.
Is that the one where corporations are people?
Yeah, effectively. Money is speech.
Money is speech.
That's basically what they're saying. They're saying that a dollar equates to speech, and so therefore corporations are free to spend as much money as they like in an effort for speech.
You know what that smacks of to me?
Garbage.
That smacks of like. So here's the thing. Maybe there are maybe I'm too naive, and there are machinations going on. But wait, hang on.
No, you got it right the first time. Don't try to sell it back. I'm telling you, it's terrible.
But no. That's not. It could be machinations, but assuming that it's not, assuming that the people that make that decision, those Supreme Court justices that make that decision, are well-intentioned, right? To me, it's like you're missing the forest for the trees. You are so mired in the minutia of the legalese that you have surrounded yourself with that you stop thinking about the big picture logically of what the fuck you're saying. Like, the arguments may have been very well and eloquently fashioned by the lawyers who were lobbying to promote Citizens United, right? But step back for a fucking second, take a minute and realize what you are saying and what the consequences of that are in the broad scheme. Don't be like, well, because here's the thing.
I'm
right?
going to make this. I'm going to make
logic,
this. I'm going to make
logic
this
is
really
not the
simple.
same thing as what's right.
I'm going to make this
you can have
really simple. It was a conservative decision that passed Citizens United. Conservative justice decision, effectively. They had a sufficient majority that they were able to make that decision. And the simplistic view, without getting too detailed about it, is that the conservative wing of our government is heavily entrenched with financial interests from corporations, and it was the absolute perfect way to keep the system of oligarchy and corporate interests in our government without anybody asking any more questions. So they had no well-intentioned thoughts. They claimed that it was originalist. They claimed that it was interpreting the original text of the First Amendment, and that is how they determined that if I have $1 and Pepsi Cola has $1, then therefore we are equal in our speech, which is complete bullshit. You and I know this. Most reasonable people know this. But it was argued sufficiently that it was easy enough for them to get it through, and we didn't notice.
That's too pessimistic for me.
Yeah, buddy, here's the thing. Pessimism and optimism are the same thing. Optimism just feels better, but it's realistic. This is what happened. This is not like a view of what happened. This is what happened.
What happened was the ruling was passed. What you are claiming is like you understand the minds of the people who passed it and why they did it.
I understand the 30 years plus of lobbying that occurred to make sure that one day that would be the ruling. I understand that the only reason that President Trump was elected was because he was supported by a sufficient number of Republicans, because they knew damn well that he was going to get to appoint enough Supreme Court justices that they were finally going to be able to overturn Roe v. Wade. The Mitch McConnell is a brilliant politician. He wanted nothing to do with Donald Trump except for the fact that he knew that this was going to work out. They have an agenda, and this is not just Republicans. Democrats have an agenda too, so do independents. You have an agenda, I have an agenda. We all have agendas. That's the name of the game. But if you pay attention to the way that it's been operating, the long game that's being played here is a game to make sweeping changes over the course of many decades. And if you don't pay attention to it when it's starting, then by the time it's done, it's too late. And the only thing you can do is protest. That's the only thing you can do, because those Supreme Court justices are going to be in that court for a very long time, and they are going to try to overturn gay marriage, and they are going to try to make rulings on other things that are going to infringe upon people's rights under the guise of states' rights.
Okay, so
yeah,
all right then. So this
is a cynical viewpoint, but it's true.
No, fine, and I won't argue it. I don't agree with it, but I won't argue with it because it segues nicely. Because the intent doesn't matter at that point. The intent of the people in power who made these decisions is irrelevant. Those decisions were made, it is done, and there are many people who disagree with that. And as a consequence, there are many people's freedoms who are now infringed because of it.
More than half the population.
So, because that's the case, and because we agree that there are legitimate reasons why a person would not be able to engage civically beyond voting, right? When push comes to shove, and a free person wants to live their life the way they see fit, and they bump up against these laws and rules that took 30 years to come about, granted, and now they're here, and they fuck this person's life over. Yeah. And this person doesn't want to have their life fucked over.
Right.
What recourse do they have?
Realistically, or a silly example?
Realistically.
realistically, as they start paying attention to the world around them, they get engaged. They start by voting if they haven't already.
But in the meantime, they're still bent over a fucking barrel, taking it in the ass.
Well, so there are things.
So if they don't want that,
there are things that an individual can do to improve their quality of life, regardless of what is happening from an external place. And if they are unwilling to undertake those actions, then they have to either be patient, or they have to get the fuck out, or to bring it to where you're looking to bring it, then they go on to violence. And if they go on to violence, then they have to accept whatever consequences come along with that. Now, the thing about the violence part is that it doesn't really work. An individual...
Efficacy is not what we're debating here. I am not debating.
Oh, so you're just talking about a frustrated idiot who doesn't understand the world?
No. I'm talking about a frustrated person who's not an idiot, but who has no choice but to accept the shitty world in which they live. They either accept the shitty world in which they live, or they attempt to do something about it.
Okay.
Now, practically speaking, voting doesn't get them where they want in any length of time that serves them within their lifespan.
Perhaps.
So voting's out. So then the only alternative is they live the way they want to live and pray that they don't get caught.
Okay, you need to give me an example here because now I'm confused.
I'll give you a hypothetical.
Give me a hypothetical.
Abortion, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Let's say that not only does it go down to a states level thing, let's say that the fucking state governments are like, fuck abortion, we're done with this shit. And it's illegal.
What do you mean, let's say? That's already happened in a lot of states.
Let's make it nationwide. Let's make it nationwide.
Okay, well, just to be clear,
the whole fucking country, it's illegal.
The Republican minority in the Senate and Congress have already put forward legislation to ban abortion in the United States.
Yeah, okay, I don't care about... I'm just hypothetical. It's irrelevant.
It is not irrelevant. And if they win and they take the majority, they will put that legislation forward.
Awesome.
So that's already in process.
All right. That's fucking terrible. But
yes,
let's say that goes through and abortion is illegal nationwide.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Guess what?
Chicken butt.
There are women who are very much still going to want to and going to get an abortion.
Absolutely.
Right.
As was the case prior to Roe v. Wade. And will again be. Yep.
Right. So if and when some of those women get found out and arrested, right? Are they just going to go, you're right, here, cuff me? Or are they going to claw and scratch, bite and tear at whoever comes at them for enforcing this dog shit fucking law?
Some of them will, and some of them won't.
Now, let me ask you this. The ones that do, the ones that bite and claw and scratch, are they idiots?
No.
So that's my only point. That's my only point. It is not always stupid. It's desperate. It might be too little too late, but it is not intrinsically stupid to, in those circumstances, lash out violently.
No, but, and I can't speak for that scenario because the scenario you've laid out is, like you said, desperate. It's a dire situation. It's terrible. It's
but
actually
there's precedent for it having happened.
Oh, absolutely. And unfortunately, it's already happened in certain states. Mississippi, I believe, Texas, Ohio, or Indiana, I can't remember which one, but in any of those cases, multiple states have already arrested women for getting abortions. They've arrested women for traveling across state lines for getting abortions.
I hope those women's that were arrested got tacked onto their sentences resisting arrest and assaulting a police officer.
So, I guess
I hope they put the police officer that arrested them in the hospital.
Well, okay, so let's be clear about something. It is not the police officer who is at fault for the law.
Oh, be very careful with that because yes, he is.
He's not.
Yes, he is. Absolutely, he is.
Incorrect.
He is absolutely at fault. Absolutely.
You may not like it.
No.
You may be able to. You may want to blame him.
Yeah. The Nazi soldiers were just following orders. No.
Then you don't understand how it works. Then your displeasure does not equal reality.
No. I'm sorry. It's wrongheaded. I don't care.
Wrong does not change the fact that this is how it works.
Legal does not define what is right. It defines what is legal.
Right.
Correct. But you shouldn't live legally. You should live righteously.
Well,
there's a difference.
No. And that's dangerous. And I'll tell you why it's dangerous. Because your righteous and another man's righteous are two very different things. Well, and his righteous might be to go kill people who are innocent, and your righteous might be to go fight against police
Multiple
officers.
people's legal are different things too.
No.
In a system.
No.
In a system.
That's incorrect. That's the point of the law. The point of the law is that it is...
that's the point, but we just went through a circumstance where the law doesn't actually reflect the will of the people.
Right, and it should be changed, and it should never have been brought to that point either. But you can't blame the police officer for arresting somebody for breaking the law.
Too little, too late.
The law...
We said that there are legitimate reasons why engagement can't exceed voting. There are legitimate reasons why large swaths of this society
there aren't.
Cannot be engaged beyond...
No, there aren't.
Oh,
I call bullshit. I call you know what the reasons are? I don't wanna.
Be careful.
No, I'm serious. Because the example that you gave jokingly about smoking pot and playing video games is a joke, but it's fucking real. And I'm not pointing at you. I'm pointing at lots of people.
For some,
laziness as a thing inherently will keep you from doing what you should be doing and what you need to be doing on a regular basis. And if you're going to complain and bitch about the world around you and you've done nothing about trying to change it, then you can go fuck straight off. Straight off. And the police officer, whether I agree with him for his actions or not, is simply abiding by the law, and the law, whether you like it or not, whether it's right or not, whether it's wrong or not, the law is the only leveling factor that we have to abide by. And if we do not abide by the law, then we have chaos. And even if it's righteous, we have chaos.
Okay. So let's give you a fun hypothetical.
Go ahead.
Let's pretend that we wind the clocks back to pre-Civil War. And we're having this conversation about slavery.
Mm-hmm.
So if we extend the logic that you're applying to this situation, you would say that, hey, listen, you might think it's wrong, but slavery is legal. And, those officers who are tracking down those slaves and arresting them and bringing them back to their owners.
Which side? Where do I live in this example? Am I a Southerner or am I a Northerner? It's important to know.
Well, no, it's not, because
it is.
Not all Southerners were pro-slave, and not all Northerners were anti-slave.
I'm not suggesting they are, but it's important to know where I was at the time of this occurrence, because there's different reactions and there's different ways. So in the United States government, in Washington, D.C., legislation was trying to be passed to abolish slavery. The South said, no, fuck you, we're out. And they seceded. That's what caused the war. Slavery did not. The North or good people in the South didn't go, we're going to fight for slavery or to keep or to prevent slavery. They fought because the South tried to ditch the United States. That war was not about slavery. That war was about the South seceding from the Union because we were trying to outlaw slavery. And they said, no, our whole world is based on slavery. And some of the people in the South agreed and some disagreed, and some in the North agreed and some disagreed. And the war was fought, not over slavery. That's a terrible mistake.
Well before the war was fought, when slavery was legal everywhere, and before Washington, D.C. was trying to pass legislation to outlaw it, right? There were slaves that would try to run away.
Yes.
And there were people that would try to help them and free them.
Yes.
You're saying that it is right and fair that those slaves be returned and that the people who tried, and those free people who tried to help them, be punished under the law.
I never said that. I said, but you can't. And I said in the example that you gave, I said that you cannot blame the police officer because the police officer did not enact the law. The police officer simply enforced the law that was on the books.
But the police officer is not a robot. They are the first line.
Police officer is a fucking robot.
Then that's wrong.
No, well, maybe yes, maybe
no
no.
wonder. no wonder so many instances of killing innocent people or unarmed people happen, because too much is the pervasive thought that police need to just be robots. No. We need thinking, feeling, intelligent people as police officers.
So I don't disagree with you in concept, but let me ask you the question: what happens when the police department can make decisions on the street, on the spot, about what's law or what's not? What's the consequence? Anything goes.
They don't get to make decisions about what is law and what is not law. They get to only make decisions about the laws that they choose to enforce.
If a police officer can choose individually to enforce a law or not, then what keeps the rest of us from following that law or not? That's a simple question. If those that are charged with enforcing the law as it is written are able to choose
our own sense of the social contract.
No. Then there's no point to law.
No, there absolutely is.
No, I think you've missed the point terribly.
No, I think you've missed the point terribly. Law is there to serve.
For a living.
Law cannot serve under all circumstances.
For a living.
There is no law that can be written that serves us under every circumstance, because it is impossible to conceive of the infinitude of potential circumstances under which the law might be applied.
And so you are giving then the individual, in this case the police officer, the ability to make choices in the infinitude,
the responsibility
to make the decision in the infinitude of possibilities that might
occur. They have the responsibility as a human being.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a configuration manager.
What do you do? What's the job?
Okay, I push paper.
You write instructions and procedures.
Right.
For military operations of some sort.
Very, very vaguely, yeah.
I'm not trying to be specific.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
So do you expect that the instructions that you write are being written for a reason?
Do you know that when I write them, I intentionally write them with enough vagary to allow an individual to make decisions in the moment? That's built into the process.
Why?
I don't want my procedure to be so descriptive and explicit that it allows for no deviation from it, depending upon circumstance.
Why
because
then
I cannot conceive of every possible.
No, you couldn't. But then why write a procedure at all?
Because there are some basic steps that are good to be outlined, to be followed in most cases.
Okay.
And in most cases, I expect them to be followed. But I allow for the subordinates who follow those procedures to violate those procedures if they can present a reasonable reason for why they should do so. Sure. I'm not so rigid in my enforcement of the procedure that I wrote to say, no, I don't give a shit if Jesus told you not to do it. You should have fucking bullshit. So, there might be a very good reason that I couldn't think of that required them to violate the procedure.
So the police officer in the scenario where he arrests a woman for getting an abortion in the state of Alabama. Do you blame him for arresting the woman?
Different offenses.
Nope. This is a simple one. He arrested the woman who got an abortion, and that was against the law.
Give me a second. I'm not necessarily contradicting what you're going to say.
I'm asking you a question.
I know you are, and I'm going to take my time to answer it, so you're going to wait to hear it. It depends on the crime.
I just told you the crime.
Violation.
I just told you the crime. A woman got an abortion in Alabama. The police officer arrested her because she got an abortion illegally.
Okay.
Should that police officer be held responsible for arresting her, in that he did the thing wrong, such that he requires a beating or a violent action against him?
At that point, it boils down to what that officer believes.
Yeah, but he's not discussing what he believes. He has a piece of paper that says, when women abortion, I arrest, law. And he goes and he does it.
But the whole point is for you to interrogate my premise, right?
No.
In my premise, right, where we've granted officers the responsibility.
No, we haven't even gotten to that point yet. We're still at the point. We're still at the point where the terrible situation of a woman who gets an abortion in a state where it's illegal has been arrested, and her reaction is desperate and violent and angry. And quite frankly, yeah, fuck yeah, because it's fucking terrible. But the question I'm asking you is whether or not the police officer who has arrested her should be held responsible, and should he be the victim of that violence and anger?
Yeah.
He should.
Yeah, ultimately, yes.
So?
Not all of it, but some of it for sure. Okay. He absolutely has responsibility.
If you can,
he could have turned a blind eye, unless he believes in it. If he actually personally believes in it, then he has a moral responsibility based on his own moral code to do what he did.
Let me create a hypothetical for you. Okay, it's the South in in the time of slavery, or not even the time. Forget the time of slavery. Let's do it 1958. It's 1958, okay. And it's Georgia. And a white man kills a black man. That's against the law. The police officer is a racist fuck and goes, I'm going to turn a blind eye because my beliefs say that even though it's the law that that it's illegal for you to have killed him, I'm good. We're good. You're good.
That's a good one.
That's the same thing. Your beliefs as an individual should not be the thing that makes the decisions for everybody.
They have to be, though.
No. For you in your own little universe, in your tiny bubble that extends a quarter inch from your face.
In everyone's world, it has to be.
Okay, but again,
you have to go by your own moral compass.
So white cop doesn't arrest white guy for killing black guy in the 1950s Georgia. Good for him, right? In your example, good. He believed it.
Well, insofar as he is adhering to his own moral code, he is being consistent with himself, and he's not being a hypocrite.
That doesn't matter.
So he's taken responsibility.
That doesn't matter
for that. But what I would say is this. If it is found out that he has turned a blind eye, right? And somebody else in the chain says that, hey, why didn't you arrest this guy, right? And he gives his reason. He's still son of a bitch.
Yeah,
I don't know. No, you got me. I think you got me.
So all I'm saying to you is, the example you gave me, I agree with. If I were a woman in that situation, I would be angry and desperate. If I saw a woman in that situation, I would totally validate her desire to be desperate and angry. I agree with her. I would be angry at that police officer. I would be, because I believe that it's wrong. But the point is that if we allow the belief of the individual to make the decisions for the society, then we are in a free-for-all.
And we always do. Fundamentally, it is our beliefs that govern that end up dictating the laws.
Yes. It is our beliefs that end up dictating the laws.
Collectively.
But it is what separates our society now, no matter how imperfect, from more primitive, worse societies of the past, is that we write them down in law, and we try, not all of us and not all the time, but we try our damnedest to follow them. And if we all just follow those laws, then we don't need to be on the streets hammering each other in the skulls because we disagree. It's when we allow our beliefs to take the front of our minds and ignore all of the work that we've done to prevent our emotions from taking over. That's the only time we have a functioning, peaceful society. The white officer in Georgia who did not arrest the white man for killing the black man was wrong, and fuck him. The officer in Alabama who arrested the woman for getting an abortion is wrong. Fuck him. But the law is the law is the law. And if we get angry at the police officer every time we don't agree with a law, we're in chaos. And then, to me, that's more terrifying than anything else. Now, I'm not a woman, and I don't have to suffer the consequences of our ignorance as it relates to abortion. I'm thankful for that as an individual, but I'm terrified for all the women that I know in the world who have to suffer that consequence, who have to feel like, oh, I don't matter at all. You guys get to decide what happens. I think that's fucking horrible. And I think it's probably one of the biggest mistakes this country has made in its history. It's probably in the top 5 list of terrible things the United States has done. But at the same time, I don't believe that we should take out our anger and violence on the police officer in that example. We should take out our anger in the form of civic engagement on our government. Because
that woman is
She's
poor,
justified in her
she's
actions.
working. She's poor. She's working 2 jobs.
Doesn't matter if she's rich and she's working no jobs.
She doesn't have the time to be involved.
No, it's fucking terrible. She is justified in her actions. But the real question that I ask is, were those actions effective? Were they reasonable? Were they necessary? Did it make any change? Probably not. Probably not. And quite frankly, in that example, she is now suffering additional consequences that she didn't necessarily need to suffer. Because the truth of the matter is that in the example that you gave, the woman arrested in a state for getting an abortion that is now illegal to get an abortion in would have gotten counsel from another state where it was legal. She would have likely been donated a goddamn fuck ton of money to get the fuck out of that horrible place in the first place. And she probably would have ended up relocating through the charitable good of many others. I can speak for myself. I have given an amount of money to organizations that do just that for women in the United States since Roe v. Wade's been overturned. Because you're right, there are plenty of women out there who do not have the time or the money or the capability to travel across state lines or to get out. So the rest of us now have to spend our money to support those women who are going to be in those situations. So quite frankly, if she assaults that police officer, she's in a worse off position than if she didn't. And if she doesn't assault that police officer, she's going to have recourse and she's going to have funds that are available to her to get out. Hopefully, right? That's the idea. But if she beats the guy or if she hits him or scratches him, she's going to get another charge. And she's going to get thrown in jail for that too. And that's going to make her life worse. Now look, again, I agree with her. It's fucking terrible. But it doesn't work. It's not useful.
So you just take it on the chin?
No, you don't take it. Look, we took it on the chin. We took it on the chin. When we allowed the government that represents the people to create a scenario where we are now less free as a consequence, we allowed that to happen. Citizens, us, you, me, the other guy, person down the street, we are all responsible for that. Because every time we smoked weed and played video games instead, we bear responsibility for that consequence. And so now we have to deal with the fallout.
Do you believe that the majority of the reason for a lack of civic engagement is laziness?
No,
because
that's
the
that's hyperbole.
We allowed it to happen implies that we could, if we had been paying better attention, we could have used our time for other things that would have been more constructive, that would have helped us to avoid that situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
That implies that we have the time and resources to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
you and I right now.
Oh yeah.
Are sitting here for an hour and change bullshitting.
Do you know what percentage of the population you and I represent in terms of our socioeconomic standing?
It doesn't matter. Socioeconomic is fucking meaningless. We're sitting here now wasting our time where, quite frankly, instead we could be paying attention to more important things. But we're not. Sure. We're doing this instead.
Let's say that everybody in our socioeconomic class were to do that. You're talking about maybe 3% of the population of this country.
Okay. Whatever.
Is now more engaged.
Hey.
That's more. Before.
That's more. Because, look, I know people and you know people. And here's what I know about myself. I have a microphone.
Which immediately makes you more interesting and powerful than others.
Basically, yeah. My personality lends itself to talking to lots of people and therefore having people rethink their positions on a regular basis. So I influence some number of people out in the world. You influence some number of people out in the world. And every one of us influences some people out in the world. And if you engage with humans on a regular basis and you try to expand your viewpoint of engagement and education and critical thinking to other people, then you can assume that that's going to spread a little bit. And if each one of us spend a little bit more time doing that, then we would be in a better off position. Here's the simplistic viewpoint of the Roe v. Wade thing. This was a long game. They have been working on this for a very long time. Evangelical Christians have been in the pockets of politicians for a very long time. Our lifetimes, basically, roughly speaking. In order to do this today. This was the deal. This was their whole mission for the better part of 50 years was to accomplish this. And hold on. And the final thing that happened, was a Republican getting elected to the presidency such that he was capable of nominating numerous judges to the bench while simultaneously preventing the previous president from nominating a judge to the bench. Do you remember the Merrick Garland nonsense? That whole like, oh, you can't nominate a judge so close to an election, like it was like 6 months out, and then this fucker nominates a judge within a week of the election. That was a plan. That was the way they got it done. And we didn't pay attention. We elected him. We elected the others. And we have put ourselves in this situation. So I believe that we as a society bear responsibility, because if we have a representative government, no matter how fucked up and stupid and bureaucratic and corporate interest and lobbyist that government is, the people that we are electing are a reflection of ourselves.
That implies that the game is not rigged. We the people are not playing it well enough.
Oh, God, we're fucking terrible at this. Less than 40% of us vote. Can you imagine a situation where you were playing a game?
See, I'm also cynical enough to... I believe that, but I'm also cynical enough to believe that the game is also rigged.
See, here's the thing. The game isn't rigged in a way that people think it is. The game isn't like... There isn't a demon up top fucking pulling strings. There are lots of clever people with lots of clever interests who want to do lots of clever things and are working really hard to make sure that they get to do those things. And it is up to us to be able to recognize the things that they do that we don't like.
It's their full-time job to figure out how to swing the game to their advantage. You can't expect the majority of the country to make...
350 million of us in this country, and you're telling me that a couple of hundred of them are just that good.
Is that all you think it is?
A couple of hundred in the Congress and the Senate. Yeah. I'm sorry, a few hundred.
No, it's not just them. It's the thousands, tens of thousands of lobbyists.
Sure.
Who are constantly rigging the game.
What's the percentage of those people compared to the voting population in the United States? It's fucking tiny. Are we that terrible and weak and feeble-minded that we're going to allow a few tens of thousands of fucking agenda-driven people to rule us? Yes.
That's always how it's worked. But not because we're weak and feeble-minded.
Why?
All it's ever taken in a society to upset the balance is a couple thousand motivated people.
But
that's all you need.
But that's because
you could do that in China, where they have 1.5 billion people. You could have a couple thousand, and they would upset all of China.
When we as a society are too busy fucking blowing up birthday balloons,
living our lives, stop saying that we're too busy fucking around.
When we're blowing up birthday balloons and we're watching TV and we're jerking off and we're fucking going to the store to look at shit we don't need, all of that shit is precisely the game. You're distracted. We are distracted. I am distracted. I'm distracted right now. I'm not out in the world doing something beneficial. I'm sitting here talking to you. I'm enjoying myself. But this is the point, is the distractions of our bullshit society are keeping us from being sufficiently engaged in the way that we need to get the change that we want. So here we are. Look, I'm sitting here in a room that's not properly lit, and on this fucking video monitor, the only webpage that I know of that has a white background is Amazon. So I can get a little bit of light on my face, because if I close that window, it gets dark on my face. So this is my illumination. But it's fucking Amazon, and I can go buy fucking Kind bars or thermostats or fucking motor oil, or if I scroll down a little bit, I can watch the Northman. I don't even know what that is. How about a table? How else can I fucking scroll through my life and click on shit I don't need? It's amazing what we've done. It's stunning.
Okay. Point sufficiently made. Circling back to the core of this.
Yes.
If violence at the individual level, however justified it might be, is completely ineffective, as you have laid out, when is violence not only a reasonable course of action, when does it become an effective one? Or is there no circumstance under which that's the case? Because at least once in our history, or actually twice, there has been precedent
several times
effective violence.
So, okay. So how about this then? Violence can be effective.
And justified. Both.
Okay, let's just say effective and justified, which, I'm still on the fence about, but let's say that is. Is it the better way? Or is it a recourse born out of desperation and ignorance and a lack of a better way? Now,
all right, so spin the American Revolution such that the violent revolutionary option that they chose was the worse option. There was, what was the better option?
I don't know. But we're not in the American Revolution.
All right.
Right? We're not.
How about the Civil War?
We're not 250 years ago. We're not, 150 years ago. We are today. We are in a modern cooperative society in a globalist fashion. And we have channels with which we can engage one another in the United States of America in a way that does not require violence for us to get things done. Violence ultimately is the resort of a smaller mind, in my viewpoint, or a sufficiently desperate measure that there is no option. Defense, pure defense.
So, are you implying that there is no reasonable scenario in modern times where violence is the correct course of action for a society?
I'm implying that in the United States, I don't believe there to be a reasonable course for violence in our political and civic engagement.
Right now.
Right, yeah, in current times.
What about is there any hypothetical? Reasonable hypothetical. Something that you think could happen that
would
where
require
violence would be a reasonable, justifiable.
The only thing I could think of is an attack initiated of some sort, a violent attack of some sort, right? Whether it's a punch in the face or a fucking bomb, some form of attack initiated by a sufficient group of people such that the only method to defend yourself is through additional violence, which is an unfortunate consequence.
So you don't think that there is any political divide that cannot be bridged with discourse?
Yes, because the whole point of politics, period, is to avoid physical interactions, is to avoid violence.
Okay.
Democracy is a substitute for war.
You're giving people a lot of credit.
Well, yeah. In order to make that work, I'm assuming that everybody's going to go, oh, Marx said we don't need to do violent. Let's go talk. No, I understand that's not a realistic thing that people are going to do. What I'm saying is that the violence let's take fucking fuckface in San Francisco who tried to kill Nancy Pelosi but instead hit her husband with a hammer. Okay? This guy believed that if he broke Nancy Pelosi's kneecaps, he would win something. Like we did it.
Is that what, wait, no, he wanted to kill her, right?
So my understanding thus far from the police report that I read, my understanding of his own words is his intent was to kidnap her, break her kneecaps, and wheel her into Congress in a wheelchair. That was his, right.
Holy shit.
Right. And that didn't happen because she wasn't home. So he hit her husband with a hammer and now they fucking got brain damage, which is fucking terrible. So this fucking guy believed that he could further his political viewpoint through violence. It's clearly not effective. The only consequence of the January 6th riot and effectively the insurrection and the siege on the Capitol, the only effect that had was to additionally marginalize those idiots, get half of them convicted, and hopefully get enough of the rest of us together to go, oh, that was fucking bad. We need to stop electing idiots. And hopefully we can get the rest of these people to stop believing conspiracy theories. But that violence didn't stop government. It didn't prevent the swearing in of Biden. Even fucking Pence was like, no, fuck you. We're doing this now. Clear the fucking Capitol. We'll be back in there at 3 o'clock in the morning. So the violence that's being perpetrated or thought about to solve our fucking discourse is bullshit. It's bullshit. It's not a civil war because the way the Civil War broke out the first time was not because we disagreed with each other in the streets. It's because the government split. It would be the Civil War as it happened back then, to give you some kind of comparison today, would be if the Republican Party went, you know what? We're taking the Southeast. See you guys later. Fuck off. We're now the southern states of America, which is how they did it the first time. That would be the real Civil War. But us idiots in the streets yelling at each other, fucking being angry at wearing masks and fucking watching polling stations because we think the fucking election is rigged and walking around the streets of Texas with fucking AR-15s and going on a Walmarts with our fucking open carry because we think we're cool. All those fucking idiots, they're not doing a goddamn thing. They're pissing people off. They're intimidating people. They're causing problems. They're not making their point. I don't think any of that's useful. And if half of them realize that, then we'd be in a much better place. Because look, quite frankly, for the past, I don't even know, like in our lifetimes, let's just go with in our lifetimes. In our lifetime, the government has been sufficiently 50-50. There's been very few times in our lives, in our 40 years roughly of life, that the government has like been 98% Democrats or Republicans. It's been 50-50. It's the same shit as it's been since the 80s, since the 70s. So all the shit that's happening now is no fucking different. Yeah, the Senate's going to swing to Republican. Why? Because there's a fucking Democrat in office. Same shit that happened 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. It's nothing new. So our violence doesn't do anything in the way that we think it does. All our violence does is exemplify the fact that we are, I say we all the time, by the way, if you've noticed, we, because I include myself in the ignorance, because I'm a citizen of this country and therefore I'm a we. Our violence is nothing but a reflection of our own ignorance and our own inability to express ourselves and our own inability to be patient. We are selfish, ignorant assholes. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Ayoub podcast. I don't have anything else to say on this one. We can resume.
I feel like we've ended on a strong note of agreement.
Have we? Are we agreeing?
Well, on that last thing you said.
Okay, cool.
We are selfish, ignorant assholes.
We are selfish, ignorant assholes. Thanks for listening. Join us again next time when we talk about something else.